What if I told you that a bitter voice can dominate and violate who you are meant to be as a Christian man? My name is Devin Davis. You're watching. You good, bro? Today we're talking about that belittling and dominant bitter voice that is so prevalent and can ultimately corrupt who you are meant to be as a man. But let's go ahead and dig deep in this, shall we? The scripture I want to talk about take this subject from is from Hebrews 12:15. Look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. So, here's the thing. We as men tend to believe that there is no such thing as us being bitter. Or at least that's what we can think, right? But in actuality, that's not true. Because I can think of a specific time where I was bitter and it ultimately just changed who I was as a man, as a figurehead in the household, and as someone that is supposed to be a child of God. My wife and I, we moved to California for a better job opportunity. And ultimately, I was a part of a denomination in church where I was supposed to be this elder, pretty much have elders' orders, and be a reverend, right? Turns out that I put too much effort in trying to get or stay at a job working for Google. Might as well just say that. And ultimately, not putting that same effort into continuing my studies as a reverend. And so I had to, and it all came crashing down when I didn't get the job, and then also when it was time to be elevated to an elder, I wasn't elevated to an elder. And somehow, some way, I turned that to be that God, you promised me something great, like you, you, I deserve this. I deserve to be this because I was told that if I keep on doing my job or try to figure it out, then everything else would fall into place. Man, that was interesting, to say the least. Because what it really comes down to is the fact that I put too much effort, time, and energy into something that really wasn't from God. I mean, it was a blessing from God, but now that I look back on my life, then God pretty much had something better for me. But when you're in that moment, you of course we don't we tend to focus so much on the thing that's in front of us, the prize that's in front of us. And it gets too much. And so I interned that into believing that, man, I was supposed to get this. I was supposed to get this thing. I was told to do this. I thought I was told to do this, or I kept on believing that I was told that if I do this, everything else will fall in line. That wasn't God. That was my own vanity. That was my own thought process, thinking that, nah, let's try to focus on this instead of that. Put the wrong efforts into that. So, fast forward a couple of months after getting turned down from getting that position, and then also not getting promoted to elders orders. I held on to this belief that, you know what, that's it. That's nothing. Everything else is whatever. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to sit here in my bitterness. Sit here in my own dwelling and be like, you know what? Nah, that's not it. I don't want to do this anymore. Not realizing the consequences of my thought process, not realizing the consequences of that voice that kept on saying, nah, you aren't good enough for that. Nah, you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to have this. You're supposed to have that. You didn't get it. God's not right for you. Bitterness. Such a belittling small voice. It's such a small voice, but it keeps on nagging you in your ear saying, nah, you hold on to that grudge. You hold on to this. And it's nothing but a stubborn spirit that has the nerve to graft onto our souls and make life a living hell on a daily basis for us. That's all it was doing for me. I stopped going to church. I left that church, had a whole grudge against that church. Stopped going to church in general. I would see my wife go to church because she's getting healed and progressing in her life. But then I had the nerve, that same voice saying, see your wife, why aren't you getting what she's getting? Like, come on. How dare I in that state take in this thought like, oh, how dare she get what she wants? Like, bro, you not putting in work. You're not putting in no work. What you expect to happen? Hold on to that bitterness. But it ended up blinding me. It ended up making me not focus on the true grace that was being bestowed because my wife was getting healed. My wife had to end up taking the lead of being the head of the household in the spiritual regard. Yeah, I was still technically making. I had got a new job and I was making ends meet, but I was spiritually dead. How can I say I'm the head of the household when I'm spiritually dead and then have the nerve to put that same role on my wife, who she has her own responsibilities, being being of my rib, my helpmate. How dare I put that on her? But I didn't see that because I held on to bitterness. So a couple months pass, and my wife tells me, please, I'm begging you, come with me to meet my spiritual mom. She began to be a part of this community of sisters, and her spirit she be in one of the ladies ended up being her spiritual mom. And so I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it because I love you. Man, her spiritual mom prays for me, and she starts prophesying and seeing what the hurt that I had been holding on to ultimately derailed things. He derailed everything for me. She literally saw me, you know what? God, I give up. She literally saw me drop my sword. She literally saw me drop my shield and walk away. But she did point out that there is still restoration to come. There is a grace that followed me. There is a mercy that followed me. Isn't it amazing how God will always, and I mean always, find a way to look at you and that voice that's in your ear and manage to shut it up for a few moments to say, listen to me. Look at what's around you. Look who you are right now. I didn't mean for you to be this way. But here we are. So let's do something about this, shall we? I'm going to keep on chasing after you. I'm going to keep on coming after you, whether you like it or not. And I'm going to keep on reminding you that I never left. That I never ever left. I'm still here. And I'm going to keep reminding you, whether you need to see the signs or not, to say, nah, I mean for you to be a better man. When I heard her spiritual mom say those words, it opened up my eyes. It forced me to see that, yeah, what I did that. But I still have this chance to be redeemed. I still have this opportunity to keep moving and living a better life. I still have this moment in time in this very crisis of my mental acuity to say, nah, God, I'm chasing after thank you for chasing after me. Now I'm chasing right back after you. So I'm chasing after you, God. What do I have to do? He simply just asks us to do this one thing. Well, one thing, but it's several caveats, right? Get that bitter fruit out of you. So, in the verse today, it talks about this poisonous root of bitterness. And so when you allow that poisonous root to be ingested into your spirit, into your soul, it ends up blooming into a poisonous fruit. And it has the unmitigated gall to just gnaw and corrupt your entire being. It has this natural feeling of infecting every single part of your thought process. And it has a stubbornness that holds on to your spirit, that leeches onto it. And here's the thing, too. That stubbornness of that fruit, that bitter fruit, can change who you are meant to be as a man. Or if you're a lady watching this, change who you are meant to be as a woman. But for my men, I just want to let you know that it can be so dominating, that belittling small voice of bitterness can be so dominating that it can cause you to lose sight of the blessings that God has bestowed upon us. It can cause us to be blinded by what He truly is meant for us to be in our lives. That it can really blind who you're meant to be in God's eyes. So how do we overcome this? It's 3 points. 1, allow yourself to open up your eyes and see the grace that God is giving you, that He's surrounding you with. Like, it took me a moment, a very brief moment, to have that recollection to say, all right, look, so there's got to be a reason why my wife is having to take on these responsibilities. There's got to be a reason why we're not being spiritually drained. Like, she's having to put in all this work, but I'm not holding up my end of the bargain. Where are we getting this extra grace from? Where are we getting this extra amount of power from you, Lord? It took her community. God planted those seeds of grace in her community to pray for me. And it took me to see that. Took me to see that either I can be deep in my pit of wallowing tears and bitterness, or I can try to traverse this hill, this molehill, this mountain even, to get to the other side and say, God saved me for this very reason alone. 2. Wow, can't put numbers up. 2. This is hard. This one's hard. Won't be as hard as number 3, I promise you. But this one's hard. Embrace your mistake, but leave the stubbornness behind. Embrace your mistake. There's a reason why that bitterness and anger happened. Or embrace that mistake. It might not even be yours. It might be someone else that did some wrong to you. But leave that stubbornness behind. It happened. It happened. There's a reason why it happened. I don't know what that reason might be, but it's shaping who you are meant to be now. It's shaping you to be a better person. It's shaping us for us to learn from these issues beforehand. It shapes us to learn from what that trauma was beforehand. It shapes you to see, like, all right, well, I'm here now. What am I going to do? What are we going to do about this guy? What are we going to do? For me, embrace the mistake that I put too much energy into trying to stay at something that wasn't meant for me. Instead of focusing on focusing on what should have been for me. Or probably was meant for me. But I turned it down. It happened. But I'm here now. I'm made better because of it. I have to embrace that. But that stubbornness of that bitter fruit, nah, that's got to go. That stubbornness to say, like, nah, you're wrong. Nah, that's not going to fly. That's not going to work. Which leads me to my third point, which I said. It's the hardest. And if you are very keen on what I've said before, you probably know what this one is. Forgive. Forgive yourself. Forgive that person. Forgive because God forgave you and God forgave them. Am I saying forget? Absolutely not. We're human. We can't forget. We can say we forget. No, it's still there. So I'm not saying that. But I am saying forgive. Forgive. Because once you forgive, that means you're allowing God's grace to rest, rule, and abide within your heart, in your soul, in your mind, your eyes, your ears, your voice, these hands, your destiny. You're allowing His grace to move within your soul. Now, there's still going to be a healing process. It's still going to take time. But at least we make the first move by forgiving. Because when we forgive, that belittling voice that's nagging in our ear starts getting quieter. As time in the healing process moves on, it starts to go away. And that bitter fruit dies out. Forgive for yourself. For your own soul's sake. Forgive. For me, I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself for putting too much effort into something that wasn't probably meant for me, and it ultimately was for the best. But now we're here. Now we're here. If that blessed your life, I hope you have. I thank you for joining with us today, and I definitely hope that you get to share this same sort of love with someone else that you forgive and start your healing process yourself. If you like this video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as I always say, I'll see you down the road. Peace.